A sudden knock at the door startled him, one sharp knock, then another.
Salem froze. Noura's purring stopped immediately, replaced by a low, alert hiss. She pressed against his legs protectively. "Who's there?" Salem whispered, his voice trembling slightly. No answer. The knocking came again, louder and more impatient. Salem's hand shook as he reached for the latch. A stranger at night was never a good sign. He hesitated, weighing fear against the curiosity that had grown inside him over the past few days. Finally, he opened the door a crack. A man stood outside, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dusty coat. His face was partially shadowed under the brim of a hood, and only his eyes were visible, sharp, alert, scanning Salem in one quick sweep. "You Salem bin Jaber?" the man asked, his voice low and steady. "Yes," Salem said, cautiously. "Who are you?" The man's gaze shifted to the envelope in Salem's hand. "Do you have something that isn't yours? A paper, a note, anything?" Salem's blood ran cold. The man's eyes were calculating, full of quiet threat. I only found this cat at my door," Salem said quickly, holding Noura closer. "Nothing else." The man stepped forward slightly, his tone sharper. "If you found something that belongs to someone else, it must be returned. There are people looking for it." Salem felt the weight of the warning in every word. Before he could answer, Noura leaped forward in a sudden burst of courage, hissing and arching her back. The man stepped back, surprised and annoyed. "I'll leave it this time," he muttered, his eyes narrowing. "But the next time, it won't be a warning." And just like that, he disappeared into the darkness of the desert, leaving only the echo of his footsteps behind. Salem closed the door with trembling hands. Noura jumped into his lap, her warm body a small comfort against the chill that had gripped him. He stared at the envelope in his hand. Whoever had left it, whoever had come for it, it wasn't ordinary. It wasn't just a scrap of paper. It was a trail. And someone else was following it too. Sleep didn't come that night. Salem sat awake in the dim candlelight, studying the envelope again. Printed at the bottom were a few numbers he hadn't noticed before. Order 113. Picked up at 10:47 p.m. Salem repeated the numbers aloud. What did they mean? A receipt from a shop? A delivery order? A mistake? None of it made sense. But one thing was clear. Someone wanted this envelope, and he was caught in the middle. Curiosity, sharp and dangerous, pricked at him. For years, he had let life pass by, letting each day be a repetition of hunger, loneliness, and disappointment. And now, this envelope was demanding his attention. It was a spark in the dust of his life. He stood slowly. Noura watched him carefully, sensing his sudden determination. "Let's see where this leads," he whispered, tucking the envelope into his pocket. "Let's see what I'm meant to find." Stepping outside, Salem felt the desert night differently. The wind was sharper, the sand colder, but it no longer felt empty. The road ahead stretched into darkness, endless and silent, yet inviting. Noura padded beside him, alert, tail high. Every sound, the distant howl of a fox, the rustle of sand, kept them on edge, yet together they moved forward. The farther they walked, the more aware Salem became of his own heartbeat. For years, he had let life pass by, felt invisible, forgotten by the world. Now,
With the envelope pressing against his chest, he felt alive in a way he hadn't in decades. Somewhere in the darkness, faint footsteps echoed softly. Salem paused, listening. But the desert returned only silence. Whoever had come for the envelope had vanished. For now. He tightened his scarf and walked on. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel fear alone. Nora's presence beside him reminded him that companionship, no matter how small, could give courage. And so, step by step, Salem ventured deeper into the desert, uncertain of what he would find, but knowing that his life could not remain as it had been. The night stretched on, and the stars wheeled overhead, silent witnesses to a man who had finally decided to take the first step toward change. Nora pressed against him, and together they walked toward whatever waited ahead. Salem didn't know the end of the road, but for the first time, he believed he might find it, and perhaps along the way, rediscovered life itself. The first rays of morning painted the desert in shades of gold and amber. The night's chill had faded, replaced by a warmth that seemed to seep into Salem's bones. For the first time in months, he felt the desert not as a place of emptiness, but as a world brimming with possibilities. Nora stirred beside him, stretching lazily and letting out a soft, approving purr. She had become more than a companion. She was a living reminder that life, even in its smallest forms, could offer comfort and hope. Salem adjusted the envelope in his pocket. Over the past days, he had followed its trail carefully, asking questions and observing silently. The envelope had led him to a small shop at the edge of the village, where the owner explained it was a lost payment mistakenly delivered to his home. Nothing dangerous, nothing sinister, just an error. But the journey had changed everything. He had expected the envelope to bring chaos, maybe trouble, maybe fear. Instead, it had nudged him back into the world. He had spoken to people again, worked with his hands, and allowed himself to care for someone else. In the process, he had rediscovered hope. Salem returned home that morning with a lightness he hadn't felt in years. The small money he earned from the carpenter shop had allowed him to repair the roof slightly, buy a few groceries, and even purchase a soft blanket for Nora. He set the kettle on the stove, the aroma of brewing tea filling the tiny room. Nora jumped onto the counter, sniffing curiously at the warm cups. Salem laughed, a genuine, unburdened laugh, and poured her a small saucer of milk. She lapped it eagerly, tail flicking in delight. For the first time in months, Salem felt peaceful, as though the weight he had carried for years was finally lifting, piece by piece. Just as he settled down to enjoy his tea, a familiar voice called softly from the doorway. "Salem?" He turned to see Layla standing there, hesitating. Her face was softer now, tinged with concern rather than judgment. Salem's chest tightened. Memories of pain and loss rushed through him. "Layla," he said quietly, keeping his tone even. I saw the envelope. I didn't know it reached you, and I wanted to make sure you were okay." Salem studied her for a moment. He didn't feel anger, nor bitterness. Not anymore. He had changed, and so had she, it seemed. "I'm okay," he replied finally. "Better than I've been in a long time." Layla's eyes softened.
"I can see that." Salem looked down at Nora,
who blinked up at him with her wise, trusting eyes. He realized that his happiness no longer depended on anyone from the past. It depended on the choices he made now, the bonds he nurtured, and the small joys he allowed into his life. The days passed gently after that. Salem continued working at the carpenter's shop, learning steadily and finding pride in his labor. He saved a little each week, repairing his home and buying small comforts. Noura became his shadow, following him to the market, resting by the workbench, and curling up beside him at night. Salem spoke to her often, telling her about his dreams, small thoughts, and even trivial daily observations. She listened, silently affirming his presence in the world. And slowly the village began to see Salem differently. The man who once walked under the weight of loneliness now carried himself with quiet confidence. He greeted neighbors, helped where he could, and sometimes laughed, a sound that drew smiles from those around him. One afternoon, as Salem returned from the market, he found children playing near the dunes. They called to him, offering him handfuls of dried flowers and grains of sand. Salem knelt and joined them, laughing at their playful antics while Noura chased after rolling stones. For a moment, he forgot every sorrow, every heartbreak, every lonely night. He was simply present, alive. As the sun began to set, he returned home, tired but happy. Noura curled on his lap, and he leaned back against the repaired wall of his small house. The sky blazed with pinks and oranges, mirrored in the warmth that had grown in his heart. He realized then that life didn't need grand gestures to be meaningful. Happiness wasn't found in riches, in grandeur, or in the approval of others. It was found in connection, in small acts of care, in rising each day and taking the next step, however uncertain. And Salem had taken those steps. That night, he lit a small lantern and prepared a simple dinner: lentils, fresh bread, and milk for Noura. They ate together, sharing the comfort of warmth, food, and companionship. He whispered to her, "You know, little one, you saved me, not in some magical way, but by being here, by reminding me that life still has room for care, love, and trust." Noura purred loudly, her soft warmth pressing against him. Salem smiled, the first full, unburdened smile in years. Outside, the desert stretched under the stars, vast and still. But for the first time, Salem felt no emptiness. He felt home. He felt hope. And as he sat there, gently stroking Noura's fur, he knew that life, with all its trials and hardships, had finally opened a small door for him, a door he would walk through every single day, one step at a time. The night was quiet. The desert had no voice, and yet it seemed to approve. Salem closed his eyes, breathing deeply, smiling softly. For the first time in a long time, he was truly happy.